Welcome to the Good Rookies podcast. My name is Fahim.
And my name is Nellie J, y'all. And we are Good
That's
Rookies.
right.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Good Tuesday. And guess what? It's episode 69.
69. Let's go.
69, y'all. We're so excited. It's the holidays. The guests back again. I know y'all parents are very excited to have the kids back home for 2 weeks. But before that, y'all, we have an amazing guest on this podcast. Going to drop a lot of knowledge. Fahim, please introduce who we got.
All right. So once we get to the For the Culture, we'll be able to double down as usual. What we want to do is, of course, highlight who we have on today. He's someone who has a lot of experience, we'll say. And with experience, gems get dropped. So hold on to your hat. Let's welcome Michael Tillery to the podcast today.
Michael.
Yeah.
You got me hyped, man. I'm hyped.
Yo, let's go. That's the point. Michael, man. Listen, we're gonna get into a lot of what you do and for the culture and try to pick your brain, because I think we can all learn a lot from you on this podcast today. But before we get into it, you've seen basketball evolve, right? You've seen it evolve in front of your eyes, from technology to broadcasting to everything, to media, you name it. Now, something happened this week that I wanted to ask you your thoughts on it. So searches for the WNBA jerseys doubled in 2021 this year. Now, are you shocked at this revelation? Is this what we should expect in terms of the WNBA, that they're going to have more fans, more people wanting to, I guess, invest in that league? Your thoughts on that?
Well, if you look at it, in most of the cities, they also have, a men's team, in the NBA. So when those teams are represented at games with those stars and those fans who are at the games, even ones who don't know who they are, will find out who they are, and then they'll be interested in them, and that will make the WNBA just as expansive, because these young fans will become lifelong fans of both leagues through the players, and especially if they have stars on the court, it's just going to be an explosion. I think that more should happen. I really do think that the NBA is dropping the ball at times with the marketing and branding of the NBA. Is something that they should really understand, that it's an untapped market, especially with all of the talent, all that Nigerian talent that is there. It's just an incredible thing. And I hope that, through, some of the stars, and I hope that Paige, it gets better quick, because she's going to be a major star one day too as well. The WNBA just has so much. One of my best friends, her name is Lisa Burrows, has this little phenom 11-year-old baller, and she's now being coached by Elena Deladon's trainer. His name is John Noonan. We all know each other. He's actually my ex-wife's cousin or something like that, through marriage. So it's a crazy thing. I mean, he also trained my daughter when she was hooping. So WNBA has a lot of potential. As soon as the powerful eyes want us to watch it as much as we do the NBA, it will explode. It's there. It's going to happen. As much as the NBA players are adding their support vocally, and on social media, if they're not being represented at the games, it's just bound to happen. The talent is just amazing. The talent, I think, is, in terms of the skill, is better than the NBA. The pace and space is different. The games are more fast paced and played with more passion. The players just get to the spots when they're playing pace and space. You see them get to the spots, and you can see the skill and the technical aspects of the games really being highlighted in the WNBA. If I were to ask or to coach my kids again, I would tell them to watch a WNBA game first just so they can understand the tempo and just the combination and the sets. How the sets materialize. It's just an incredible thing. I'm a WNBA fan. I always have been. I was really disappointed back in the day that Cheryl Miller, it was her and Julius Erving. It was Cheryl Miller, Julius Erving. Like, who is Reggie? Reggie wasn't there yet. She didn't get a chance to really blow that thing up as it would have been blown up if she would be able to play in it.
Yes.
But she was the vision for it all. She was the one up top, Mount Olympus, they can see with the bright light, and saw the league kind of forming under the guise of her superstar.
That's a great take.
So, Michael, I'm going to agree with you what you were saying about the female game being more fundamental. For sure, if you want to have young kids learn the game, I do agree that WNBA is a more fundamental game because nowadays the NBA or just the male game, they're losing a lot of that because a lot of it's really relied on a lot of athleticism. And so from that aspect, we're on the same page. To your question, Nelly J, I'm actually shocked that it has, the searches has increased so much, mainly being they're making an attempt to market the league a lot better. But I still do think that I realize that my circle doesn't represent everyone's circle. But I do know that in my circle, even as the WNBA playoffs were happening, a lot of people in my circle didn't really know it was happening, right? So, I mean, I think that doubling of the jerseys is actually speaking to is they're really driving home their market. Meaning the WNBA, if you are a WNBA fan, they're touching you and reaching you. And that's all really, ultimately in business, that's what you need to do is really just focus on who's focused on you. So if someone's not focused on the WNBA, then it really shouldn't matter, right? So I think kudos to the WNBA to providing a product that people who are watching it are now starting to support a lot more. So I'm with that.
There's also, I'm sorry, why it's on my mind. I write for a site called SportsKeeda, which is in India. So I see a whole new and broader perspective of sports through Indian eyes that aren't in America yet are still as passionate. So the WNBA and the NBA, the reason why it's going to expand to Europe and Asia and stuff like that is because of the lockout and all of the barnstorming players. So there were a few that went to India, and one of my editors, just happened to be a reporter at one of these NBA games. So this became SportsKeeda basketball just from him being there through the lockout. So that seed was planted there. So it's almost like you have the Super Friends, you have the Justice League. The Justice League is the WNBA. So they discovered the Justice League, and now eyes are going to they discovered the Super Friends. Now they're looking at the Justice League, which is the WNBA abroad, and it's just a whole different perspective. I'm learning so much because I'm hearing the perspectives of Indians, as opposed to Americans. And Americans, we are here. We almost take this for granted. I have to almost explain things at full length in my writing now, because the obvious to me would be a point that they would love.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't even write it in a piece, but I have to write it now so they understand just the soul and the nuances of the game.
It's a great point. And we're definitely going to get into SportsKeeda and for the culture. I want to dive into that for sure. My last 2 points is I'm not surprised because I actually was looking for some jerseys, but they were sold out. Number 2, I do think it is a circle of friends for him because I think a lot of women that I know did follow the WNBA. I know with Kia Nurse being a sports anchor now in Canada for Sportsnet, I think she's giving a lot of marketing for WNBA. And we have, I think, 4 Canadian athletes right now. And, you know, Canadians support other Canadians in these leagues. So I'm sure their family, their friends are supporting the jerseys. But I think on top of that, the WNBA is very hard to get into. They only have a certain amount of players that can play WNBA compared to other international leagues. So it's an exclusive club. So I think we're seeing the best talent right now in women's basketball in North America on this side of the pond, because I think Euro has really good players over there as well. But, you know, I believe their salaries are now $200K. They got double salary this season. I think they have a contract that now adds to the broadcasting rights. TSN signed a new broadcasting deal with WNBA. Things are moving into place. So I'm just happy for this projection. I think a lot of people were like, oh, why isn't it where the NBA is? Things take time. So I'm just happy that you both are advocates of women playing sports, because some people are not. So it's great that we can have a discussion. So I want to jump into the next topic for him. Let's get it going.
Okay, I just want to get your thoughts on Luka Doncic. He's coming to training camp a little bit heavier than normal. And he has a quote, and I just want to kind of go over what he said and get your feedback in regards to his response to coming in a little bit heavy. So it's quote, "I had a long summer. I had the Olympics. I took 3 weeks off and I relaxed a little. Maybe too much. I've got to get back to on track." End quote. What's your take on two-part, I guess? One, Luka coming in a little bit heavier than expected, and then 2, in regards to his response to people addressing them.
So before I wrote for SportsKeeda, I was very critical of Luka Doncic. I was very critical of him because, you know, me being a Wilt Chamberlain advocate, you know, growing through Dr. J, you know, seeing Mike, you know, talking to Kobe, Allen Iverson, you know, the history of the game is very important to me. You know, I was really disappointed when the league gave Steve Nash consecutive MVPs. You know, and it was almost an embarrassing sight to see him on the Lakers bench and him having more MVPs than Kobe Bryant. You know, so Luka Doncic is a study for me. Like I've challenged reporters to speak about him defensively, like challenge him to play defense. He's one of the worst defensive players ever. If he is to become this mega superstar that he has the potential to be, you know, he has to balance his game. He has to get back on defense and stop complaining to the refs. You know, he has to understand that he got a little bit of this superstar taste a little bit too early. It was given to him. It wasn't really earned. You know, the era of Tracy McGrady and Paul Pierce, the definition for superstars changed. It became too quick and a description for players coming into the league as the NBA started to you know, to capitalize off the high school players coming into the league. And it was marketing these players individually. So with that marketing and the branding and everything they were doing, players were called superstars a little bit too early. Luka Doncic is a tremendous talent. Obviously with his size, you know, his skill, you know, the way he showcased himself against the Clippers was an amazing thing, you know, where he was just greasing up, you know, Kawhi and Paul George. You know, with the criticism, and with the adulation, there also must be criticism of Luka Doncic by American sports writers. Stop riding, you know, speak about this amazing talent as is. You know, it was on all of these lists. You can see Luka Doncic's name from most improved player to MVP. You know, it was getting a little bit ridiculous. I'm like, the dude don't play defense. You know, so. Even in an era where obviously the three-pointer is highlighted, he can hit those. He's a triple-double monster. You know, the shiftiness, we've all played against that European or white player who has this uncanny ability to get to a spot on the floor that we didn't think athletically he could get to. You know, and Luka Doncic is the personification of that. You know, it doesn't matter who he's playing against. He's going to merge and morph into the grid of the game and show and prove who he is. I'm glad that he is, you know, measuring himself and saying that, you know, there's things that he has to do to become the superstar that he needs to become within himself and with his peers, as opposed to the media and fans. You know, so the challenges are constructive. You know, they're not hating or anything like that. We want to see this guy become the best of his ability. And for him to say that maybe I should, yeah, that's part of it. But he has to go the whole way to become the legend. I say let a legend be legendary, you know, but you know, to become legendary, he has to become a legendary carer of himself and take care of his health and see the example of LeBron James in almost his 20th year and is still in tip-top shape. You know, that's the model for Luka Doncic. Everybody was saying LeBron earlier anyway. You know, kind of that talk has subsided, but you know, if he wants to become that type of player, he has to see what LeBron has done and kind of be similar.
Yeah, I know you're right, because for me, I think the NBA, like you mentioned, was ready to give him the mantle like really quickly. And you know, not just Luka, a lot of players gained weight this off season. What I don't like, to be honest, and I get it, like the way it came up, I know, I think a TV broadcaster mentioned, oh, Luka, he's out of shape. He needs to, you know, get conditioned. I don't mind that language. What I don't like is someone telling an athlete, oh, hey, you gained weight. What's up with that? I think that's really invasive, because I don't think you'd ask a woman athlete that same question. Would you ask a woman athlete, hey, you gained a little bit of weight. What happened to you this summer? You know what I'm saying? Right. So, and I think men, you know, these men have feelings, they have emotions. Like Zion's weight gain wasn't just weight gain. He was stressed out. And I actually looked up stressors. I think there's different kind of stressors that athletes go through, right? Private stressors or professional or like, you know, competitive stressors, and ones where it's more, I guess, private, like family stuff or organizational stressors, right? So players go through different stressors, and that can lead to weight gain. It can lead to overeating and different things. And I think these athletes went through a lot. The bubble, short season, Olympics, like they went through a lot. We've seen a lot of athletes gain weight this offseason. And I'm not surprised, because the last year was stressful for all of us. And I think COVID and the pandemic affected these players in different ways, mentally, physically, and their habits of eating. So I just think it's really disingenuous to ask an athlete when we're going through a pandemic and what we all seen. Like Luka said, from your quote, Fahim, he had a long summer or a tough year. Like I'm hearing these things. I'm like, hey, this guy went through a lot this offseason. He's clearly going through something. He understands he lost track, but he'll get back there. But I'm not a fan of these media people trying to now ask you, yo, you gained weight. What's up with your weight gain, Luka? What happened? I'm not a fan of that. They did it to Harden. They did it to Zion. I just think that we have to be mindful that these athletes are humans first, and they go through the same stress that we go through. So I understand, like, I don't mind people saying, hey, you know, Luka, you're conditioning, or how do you feel about your conditioning? That's cool language, but telling someone, hey, you've gained weight, or you're heavy now, what happened to you? Like, I hate that rhetoric, because I feel like if we won't say it to women, don't say it to men. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's keep the same energy on both ends. That's all I want to add to that, Fahim.
If I can snap my fingers, what I'm saying.
I might be on the maybe a different side of the whole Luka situation, only because I realize, let me lay this out first. Luka is far from perfect. You know, from the free throw line, it's a liability for someone who's a franchise guy. Like, I mean, talking very bad from the free throw line for what you'd expect. Also, Michael, as you mentioned with his defense, it's true. You're not going to hear Luka Doncic in the talks of any NBA, all NBA defensive teams, you know, and that might just be a trend throughout his career. Like, he just might just be getting off of what he can do on the offensive end. So I'm on board that he's not perfect. Now I got to say this: if there was, I'm talking. There's certain people in the league who I think have that one-man gang franchise type tap, meaning like they're the guy, and I trust that they can put the team on their shoulders. I say like LeBron's in that conversation, KD's in that conversation. I think we're talking like a super elite club. Luka, this is what his third year. He has clearly, for me, shown that if I'm a GM, I would take this guy to lead my team. He has all the capabilities offensively, and there's a lot of players in the league who have the offensive skill set maybe to do it, but they don't have the the mental, the motor, things along that line. And we've seen Luka in the playoffs. He's somebody that, and like I said, he's a young player. So, I mean, I happen to be very high on Luka Doncic. I do think that over the years, cream rise to the top. So, I mean, there's a lot of young guys going for that. Who's next? Yeah, Luka is definitely in that conversation. Getting to his weight gain. So if he were to lose weight, so I'm just asking to myself, walking through, if he were to lose weight, right now he's still averaging like 25 points, 8 boards, 8 assists. Like he's flirting with a triple double on the year, and his every year his stats are going up. He seems to be being a better player. If he didn't put on this extra weight, I don't know if we could say, well, you know what, if he didn't have the weight, he'd be averaging 30 points or maybe a triple double. You know what I mean? Like, I think it kind of speaks to the fact that he himself has called himself out and said, hey, you know what, I realize I'm a little bigger than usual. But he on the floor, he's still giving the production that he always has.
So, I'm a baseball guy. Tony Gwynn comes to mind, David Wells, Kevin McHale. Some players, it doesn't matter. There've been many wrestlers that were athletic in a ring, but they didn't look like athletes. These guys are a part of the game because of how their physical and their mental adapts to the competition. So Luka's there. Now, I wrote a piece on Luka. You know what I mean? He's tremendous. I just think that my brethren, if they really care about the game, would elevate their speak on him defensively, just as a challenging measure, So
I agree.
If you challenge him to play defense, then people that come after him will place the priority on defense as well, because he will be that sole model for them.
Somebody said that because I felt like, rest in peace, Kobe, he would challenge players. That's why I really miss his voice. Like, Kobe was the kind of vet player that will call you out on your game. Nothing personal. He'd be like, I want you to be more aggressive, or, hey, Giannis, MVP, or Joker, this. Like, I like that. Like, the older guys or like the vet guys would challenge, their alum, and I think that's a really good thing in the game. So yeah, Michael, challenge him, Luka, Michael Tillery has just said, play some defense, right? So, I think it's good for these guys, because sometimes if you think you're perfect, then you kind of get stagnant. You know what I'm saying? And Luka kind of reminds me of like he's not an AD, but even like we heard about AD and, him not eating properly, him eating like a whole bunch of junk, and, I think LeBron playing for so long is because what he puts in his body. Like, I think Russell Wilson spent over $1 million, even Tom Brady, on just their diet and what they eat and their physical everything. So these guys can afford it, but for some reason, they're young, and I don't say they're dumb, but they're young and they just think that they're unstoppable. Nothing can happen to them. So I just hope that they take their bodies more seriously. And I know Zion learned a lot this season, and I know Harden. One thing I would say, a trainer told me that Luka, I think his playing weight is 230. So that's his playing weight, but he's always been a little bit, I guess, heavier since he came in the league. So Luka's aware of it. He's going to work on it. I don't think that it's a reporter's job to tell him, hey, you're overweight. That's all.
So it's funny. You mentioned Joker. And I don't remember the off season. I'm not sure if it was last. It must have been last year. Last year. When he left, kind of heavier, like, and then he came back, and we're just like, whoa, like, where'd the weight go? Like, he dropped a lot of weight. Same thing with Kevin Love. Kevin Love, when he played at Minnesota, heavier big man. By the time he got to Cleveland, I don't know. I have no idea what, but he lost weight also. So, I mean, you know, it's early in the season. Um, the weight is not something that I think Luka has. I'm not worried about Luka's weight and conditioning. I'm more worried about Zion's, just because I feels like Zion has his is a pre-existing situation in regards to his weight, and he has lower body injuries. So I think that would come into play more. But yeah, I think Luka's okay.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be fine.
I think so too.
Zion's gonna be fine too, but
Yeah,
Zion needs to get with a trainer like Tim Grover. You know, if you guys ever want to read a book that would get you very hyped, read Tim Grover's Relentless. He calls closers cleaners. There's another level to being a closer. It's a cleaner. Kobe was a cleaner. They have a dark side to them. Luka needs to focus on his dark side and become the killer on the basketball court that he is. Get to it faster. You know, again, you know, when you speak of especially players that aren't born in this country, that their culture is different. They are, they have more fans across the globe. You know, so there's different people and different cultures and languages that are hitting them and interacting with them when they're not here in America playing basketball. So all of that culture and influence is coming to them. And Luka being so young, I mean, he's looked at almost like Michael Jackson across the world. I mean, that's what he is across the world, especially when he was playing in the European Championships when he was so young. You know, so he will become that player. He just has to focus on, you know, the priorities, the things that make superstars superstars.
Is there, and last question before you go, I guess, is there any young star right now that's giving you that Kobe vibe, that MJ vibe that you think can become that? Outside of Luka, is there anyone else that you're kind of thinking could be a threat to his throne or the potential throne that the NBA is trying to give him?
This kid in Houston is killing me. I mean, he's
Jalen Green?
Mike.
Who? Which kid?
Mike.
Which kid?
Are you talking about Jalen Green?
Jalen Green? I don't see Mike at all. Oh,
I'm seeing Mike. I'm.
He's barely played. I have to watch him more.
It is. You know, it's something I've tried to hold back and
no, it's okay.
say.
Well, you got the floor.
Really not say, but you know, and what I do is I say it before a major outlet says it. You know what I mean? Because go ahead and say it. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, but there was a 3-pointer that he hit early in the season where it was just a high arching. You know, he was 5 to 10 feet behind the arc. You know, the ability for him to get off the floor, you know, is elite. It is something that is incredible. So for him to be so young and to be so athletic, and I mean, it's a mixture of Dominique and Mike to me that I see him, though he's not that height, you know, but Jalen Green to me is the most impressive. Obviously, Anthony Edwards is doing some incredible things. I'm impressed with, you know, Tyler Hero's resurgence down in Miami. I think Miami could represent the East, you know, because of what he is doing. But the guy that I want to see more than anyone, that's including Cade Cunningham, is Jalen Green right now.
Okay.
I like the breakdown. Definitely keep my eye on Jalen Green for sure. But Nelly J, let's go to For the Culture.
Ooh, for the culture. We like to highlight individuals for the culture. And today we get to highlight Mr. Michael Tillery. First of all, Michael, you do a lot, okay? 15 years as a senior analyst, sports writer, you name it. You envision basketball beyond the lens of just a typical reporter. You look at the on-court and off-court of these players into the psyche of basketball and the visionary. You mentioned that you're from the Wilt Chamberlain era of basketball. So I want to understand, you know, being a basketball fan, what got you into writing? Was it you were a fan of writing first, then basketball, or did it kind of come together like a happy marriage for you?
I was always a baseball player. I broke my leg in football in 9th grade, and my stepmother never let me play again. So there was all this built up emotion that I needed to get off. So, I was a postal worker for 14 years, and in the post office there was these basketball leagues, and I knew I was an athlete. I really wasn't a basketball player. I learned how to play basketball basically in the era of UNLV, Georgetown, rocking the jerseys at the gym on the asphalt, when jerseys were much more popular. And then being a Michigan fan and seeing the Fab Five arrive on the scene, it just gave you, another view of the sport. So being in the post office and some of these leagues, we didn't lose for like 10 years. Me and my boys would just go around the city and take everybody's money. I was a Charles Barkley type of dude that was more of a point forward. Do not take a charge, or your neck would be on the back of the spanch. You know what I'm saying? So, I hate charges, y'all. I hate charges.
You would hit Kyle-Lowry then, because Kyle-Lowry was our charge king.
One more step and play defense. This is what these coaches have to do with these kids. But anyway, a divorce happened, and I was always the guy that people would talk to because I had the sports Rolodex. So after the divorce, I wrote this poem called Divorce Cry, and my sister read it. She said, "Mike, you're a writer." So I then just began to scour the web and look for sites that would take me. I didn't go to J school or anything like that. I was writing through experience. I call it the blood of experience. So I ended up hooking up with these two sites, Black Sports Network and Black Athlete. I'm sorry. And I wrote this piece on Tiger Woods called Tiger's, I forget the name of the title, but it was basically it was almost a 400-word piece on Tiger, just basically talking about the incorporation of race in him, and for every race that he incorporates to write about him. Okay, instead of just being a mainstream or American thing, so we can get the full scope of who he is. After that, it just kind of took off. I ended up on a site with like Bomani Jones, Dave Zirin, this guy named D.K. Wilson, I think is the most gifted writer I've ever read. He has an anthropologist background, so it's just a crazy style of writing. And after that, just through the passion of playing basketball in those leagues, I just wrote my soul. And that's what I call basketball soul rock soul. So that's where the writer came from. There was always a writer in me, just had to be brought out, so it's out fully now with all the writing I'm doing at SportsKeeda for sure.
That's amazing. Y'all, SportsKeeda, we're going to have the link to Michael's complete body of work. He writes articles. I would say at least I see 1 or 2 a week. And I know Good Rookies, we always have to share your articles because it's always great, insightful pieces. One piece you wrote was, where do you think John Wall will land? And I think you wrote it before the season started. Now that we're a quarter in now to the NBA, I think you picked Knicks, Clippers as number 1, Knicks number 2. I think you had, is it Houston? Not Houston. No, you had Philly, Philadelphia Sixers, and so forth. Has your 5 changed? Have your 5 changed from who you picked?
It really hasn't. Because if you
Dallas as 3?
Yeah, if you look to Manhattan, I mean, they're going through a lot right now. Thibodeau kind of needs a jolt, instead of trying to rely on the wisdom and experience of Derrick Rose, to kind of buoy his team on. He needs a real basketball player, to do that. He has young players in Quickly and Toppin who have a lot of potential, but they need that veteran player who has the travel and been on the journey of a Derrick Rose. Obviously right now with John Wall, he has been sitting on the shelf for so long. He has to be stewing and marinating to really get out there because the narrative of him has just lessened a lot since he's not been playing. I mean, John Wall, when he was when he was playing, he at that height was able to get up to 4, almost in an Allen Iverson quickness. Was a capable defensive player, and obviously was a gifted athlete with either hand. The challenge that he is as a basketball player is almost right now in Jimmy Butler sense, where he doesn't have like a label to him. That's kind of how John Wall, it seems to me. I covered him at the draft. I had hooked up this individual interview with him in 2010 around the corner. And, I'm sitting there talking to him, and the cameraman kind of turned on the light, and I see all these little reporters running around the corner, So there's this picture of me talking to him. I'm looking at the camera guy like, this was my interview.
Yeah, like, bruh.
Yeah, but I saw back then, how he spoke about himself in a business sense as well as a athletic sense coming out of Kentucky. So I see him as the Manhattan guy. Obviously, Dallas could use him as well in defensive spurts. Dallas needs as much defense as they can get. That's the one thing about Luka Doncic is you have to either surround him with defensive players, or he's going to lose every year in the playoffs, even though he might give you everything.
He needs help.
Expecting everything, but that defensive stop in the fourth quarter is what's going to hinder Dallas from winning a championship.
I like that. And my last question is, you've met a lot of people because you worked in the NBA as well, right? Did you do stuff within the NBA as well outside the NBA, or were you more like you kind of covered more media coverage, I guess, as part of the press in the NBA?
It began really with, being a Michigan fan and the timeout kind of spurring me passionately to really describe these dudes as not just the timeout. So I found out Chris Webber's publicist and began to send her poetry, began to send her anything I could do to try to connect with the Fab Five. I had to interview all of them. It was my biggest goal was to interview Chuck D, a Public Enemy, Julius Erving, and the Fab Five. Thankfully, I've done all three.
Nice.
Julius and Chuck D at the same time.
Wow, that's dope.
Wow.
It's on my Twitter page. I think it's pinned.
It's pinned. Perfect.
It's a 4-part interview, but there's one part there. But it's I really, the Fab Five really did it. And thankful for Erica Bjork and also Chris Webber. Chris Webber had this great party in Vegas every year called Bada Bling. And every superstar entertainer you ever heard of was there. It was just a really extravagant thing, and it brought a whole lot of people together. The charisma of Chris Webber was apparent. It would be Gladys Knight on stage, or Too Short doing Blow the Whistle, or Ronald Isley, Nas, Little Mo singing Superwoman, Tina Marie.
Wow.
Marie. It was just a great thing. So that's how I filled up my phone with those 3 parties in Vegas. Seeing Claudia Jordan and talking to her, Omarosa, or Matt Barnes and Gilbert Arenas. Yeah, Matt Barnes and Gilbert Arenas when they were with their exes, when they were both pregnant at the same time.
Wow.
It was a lot. I give a lot of credit to Chris Webber, who's my boy. Shout out to Webb, for helping me becoming a social kind of a journalist that network all the time to just try to make this history sane.
Love it.
Nice. So Michael, you have so with Wilt Chamberlain, he's before my time. He's obviously a legend. You've done some history in regards to Harvey Pollack. And I seen this and I found it very interesting that you were actually going through like an old interview, and that unfortunately didn't transpire to happen. But I just want to get your thoughts of first of all, I want you to let people know exactly about Harvey Pollack. And also you'd mentioned about John Chaney also. So these are people that in the basketball communities have a contribution, and you have connections with them. So I just want to just get get your thoughts in regards to being, blessed to be in that situation in the first place.
So there's a lot to say. So please remind me if I miss a point.
Oh.
Okay, everything that you just said. So covering the Sixers, I was covering the Sixers for Slam. It was every game, and from press row. What I like to do before the game starts is to go out to press row, really sit down before even the players come out for shoot around, and just look at the Christmas eyes of fans that are excited to see what they've taken time out of their life to come to the arena to do, to see, to relax, to be emotional, to boo, to do whatever they want. So I'm taking it in, and I would see this older guy, he was hunched over a little bit, and I would see him walk around the arena all the time. What I tried to do when I was at Slam specifically was to interview a player, interview the players, interview a fan, and to somehow interview a legend that may be a trainer or an assistant coach for each team. I would call this thing 55 minutes, where I would keep 55 minutes on my recorder, and I would make sure that that thing said 0 once I left that arena, because I would run from locker room to locker room and try to interview every player, coach, trainer available, because I was trying to write the history of the game. So seeing this guy and finally, walking up to him and say, "Sir, how you doing?" He would call me sir, and I found out who he was, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, please, can I interview you? I need 2 hours of your time," and unfortunately, the day that the interview was supposed to happen, he passed away. I get really emotional about Kobe Bryant's death, Harvey Pollack's death, and Buck O'Neil of the Negro Leagues, who just got into the Hall of Fame finally, because I was on a flight to Kansas City to interview him when Buck died. It's kind of similar things happen with Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis. When I see those legends, those soul models, as I call them, I need to speak to them myself. So I try to do anything in my power to find them and interview them. So Harvey Pollack obviously had so much history. I don't know if you read the part I put on my website, Starting Five. It was an extension of what I had on SportsKeeda. But SportsKeeda, it's a gift and a curse, because the pieces are supposed to be short. I can't do it. I can't do it. Like, I have a 3,300 word piece on LeBron James ready to drop. It is talking about LeBron in a full scope of him on and off the court. I hope that people really enjoy it. I also have an interview with Scoop Robinson going up tomorrow, Scoopy Robinson. Yeah, Harvey Pollack, I think I told the story in there of Wilt asking him, to chart Michael Jordan's missed shots outside of 13 feet, I think it was. And he did this, and he found out that Wilt was correct in saying that Mike couldn't make a jumper outside of 13 feet early on. So he compiled all of this information, and he put it in his car, and he was going to print it all out, and someone stole his car. So literally the father of advanced analytics, that didn't happen till almost 30 years later. It would have happened right there with that information. The people who stole the car did not understand what those papers were. And was guarded of them. Okay, they found his car, but the papers were gone. You know, he had literally thousands of sheets of paper in his trunk that were stats.
Wow.
50 years of stats that the NBA utilized under him that became really what the league is now in terms of 36 minutes and 100 possessions or defensive ratings and that stuff would have happened 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, Harvey Pollack is due. John Chaney. I was John Chaney's last interview before he retired. You know, he would talk about this thing, the Knot Hole Gang. So it would be him, Wilt Chamberlain, and Sonny Hill that would go to the Philadelphia games and somehow get in. And obviously, these three men became legends of basketball. You know, I try to tie together the history because I have a Sonny Hill available to me. I have a Julius Erving available to me. You know, I try to speak to them as much as I can. I defer my basketball knowledge to them. I want to know the game through the people who have seen it. That's why it's hard for me to call Michael Jordan the GOAT when I have all of these people saying this Wilt Chamberlain emphatically. Like, how can these people of this new generation only see one player who is doing these special things and discount what he did based on not seeing it? But the numbers are so astronomical. You know, Bob Ryan told me that there were 3 years, I think it was like 62 to 64 or 65. It was around there. He said these were the greatest years in basketball history. It was like, what was like 27 and 25 and 8, something crazy like that. You know what I mean? He was shooting like 60%. It was a ridiculous thing. And now we're seeing this footage of Wilt Chamberlain hitting a turnaround jumper bank shot. Like, we're starting to see that. But people need to understand it. So that became Spencer Haywood's turnaround jumper. The misnomer is Kobe Bryant's turnaround jumper was Michael Jordan's. It was Spencer Haywood's. He told me that himself. Spencer told me himself. And that it indirectly came from Wilt Chamberlain. So that's Wilt's influence on the game. It's not just a dump. It's not just a dipper shot. You know, it is an actual jumper outside of the range that we think that this guy was shooting. That's what I'm saying with Harvey Pollack. A lot of stuff died with him. I have to get to all of these legends who saw it all to document it why they are here, because the information dies with them.
Wow. That was heavy.
Thank you, man. That's why we have For the Culture. Like, that's why you're highlighted for the culture. Everything you shared, it's like knowledge to us. You know, a lot of kids now are calling LeBron the GOAT. People are already calling other individuals the GOAT. Steph Curry, I've heard now. So, you know, like, it all starts from Wilt. And I always say that as like, excluding Wilt, who's your GOAT? Because I feel like he's the godfather of the game, you know?
Right.
We got to respect our seniors. But so before we wrap it up, any last words, Fahim?
Oh, no. I just, I just want to say, you know what? You know, rest in peace to Harvey Pollack and also John Chaney also. And Wilt Chamberlain also. It's just very interesting to see that we get to speak to somebody who, like I was saying, this is before our time. So anything we're reading about them is, it kind of gets lost in the cycle of what's happening, of what's now, you know? So it's just great that we have someone who can actually provide some context of what happened before.
Yes.
And definitely a great For the Culture, no doubt. Let's go to That's Absurd.
That's absurd. Fahim, bro. What was absurd this week? What was absurd?
Allen Iverson.
Allen, AI, what's up?
Oh, wow. AI. He apparently refuses to get into coaching based on the fact that he doesn't want to coach players who earn more money than him.
Hold on. He said this in his head or out loud? Like, I'm trying to understand.
He said this out loud. It has been documented. He said, if you want to, let's get this quote here.
Wow.
Yes.
AI, tell us how you feel. AI, tell us how you truly feel. Go ahead, Fahim. What was the quote?
Okay, so I don't like to curse, so I'm gonna give the PG version. Here we go.
Okay.
They asked AI to give a proper reason of why he doesn't want to get into coaches, and here's what he told the TMZ reporters. He says, "Hell no, I ain't coaching no mother who make more money than me. How the hell am I going to tell them anything?" End quote.
Oh boy. Okay, that's absurd because we all know, because I think AI is getting paid now, right? Because that clause in his contract, he's getting a lot of money now. I don't know, like Michael, I feel like a lot of these athletes that played in the late 90s, early 2000s are really bitter about how much these guys are getting paid today. We've heard my boy Shaq talk about Rudy Gobert's contract, and we've seen like MPJ, who's a role player, a good role player, getting paid a lot of money. What's your thoughts on AI? Is he justified for saying that? Like, or is it like, oh, AI, that's too much information? Do you think he's right for being this direct, or should he kind of hold it back a little bit?
Before I get into AI, I want to tell every NBA fan out there to read the collective bargaining agreement. Okay, it's 500 pages. You can find it online. Read it, and you will understand more the player's mindset as opposed to the business administration of it. You will see that $25 billion deal was basically on the backs of LeBron and the decision. So the misnomer about the NBA was that it is not as popular as advertised, but that the NBA is 250 countries across the world. This new deal would be 75 billion. Okay, so the salaries you see right now, they ain't nothing. They're going to be $100 million players very, very soon.
Wow.
For sure.
Absolutely.
It is coming. You're seeing in the Premier League and all the way overseas. So you're going to start to see that here now. Chuck.
AI.
So obviously one of my favorite athletes of all time. I got to cover him on the last legs of his career. One of the best pieces I've ever written was called "The Prince Returns to Closer's Sweet Release." It was Allen Iverson coming back to Philly from the Denver Nuggets. There's a picture of me standing next to him after that game, and his mom is in front of him. It was just a great experience. But so being that Chuck had Larry Brown, that he had John Thompson, and then there was everybody else. Okay. So everybody else weren't as respected, because they weren't these giants of the game that those two figures were. Okay. So Allen Iverson, with the Fab Five, they were positionless. That's why the Jimmy King and the Ray Jackson was able to meld into the team and make it win. Allen Iverson looks at the game in a position. Okay, he is the player. That guy over there is the coach. That guy over there is the trainer. That person up there that I greet every day, the usher, the lady, the concession people, that's it. So he's there to do his job. Okay. If the player he is coaching is not going to do his job, it's going to be bad for Allen Iverson as a coach because he's either going to take that guy around the corner or cuss him out right there on the floor. That's just how it is. I love the dude. He's very honest about what he's saying here. He's like, look, I can't. That's not. Some athletes are like that. A lot of superstars will never be coaches. Shout out to the Randall Cunningham behind you. Sorry, but yeah, that's just who Chuck is, man. I mean, he will be that guy who will be quotable when his hair and his cornrows are gray. I mean, this is how he is. That's who he's going to be. He's always going to be that legendary figure that people clamor for to speak of whatever. They just want Allen Iverson to talk because they know that they'll hear something that's going to hit them to the fullest.
Okay, so here's what I got and why I actually think this is absurd. Allen Iverson, a legend at Philly. Um, when he left Philly and he went to Denver, maybe not this, whether he was a player, same player in Denver that he was in Philly is neither here nor there. But one thing we knew is after Denver, as he started to no longer be the AI that we knew, I didn't find that he was looking to groom or nurture other players. And the reason why I say that is he did not take kindly to coming off the bench. It felt like AI was in the mind frame of I'm Allen Iverson and I'm a star. I'm a starter. Allen Iverson, I felt could have had a longer career if he were to take maybe the Vince Carter route, where you know what, maybe you don't have what you had before, but you can still contribute in other ways through leadership. Allen Iverson's leadership, I felt, was on the court. But outside, I just didn't feel that he was making an attempt to help out the younger generation. Michael, you're smiling. If you have something to say, please be quick. And
because I love to talk about my boys. You know what I'm saying? Allen Iverson's my boy. So he is his own individual. There will always be players that see themselves alongside the historical perception of personality of the game, to where they want to be stars. They are stars. Once the star fades, they want out. They don't want to be that bench player. It takes away of who they are. Allen Iverson is who he is because what many people see as a weakness is what makes him great. He is just who he is. I don't think that we should see Allen Iverson in another realm that if he did this or if he did that, he would be a better player. It's like Pac. I mean, they were the flash, their white hot flame. Once the flame goes out, they want to leave. I can't see Allen Iverson coming off the bench and scoring 5 points in a box score, even if it's to win a championship. Like he's just not that dude. You know what I mean? It's just some players just aren't that dude. You know what I mean? Right. And it's okay. He was sweet, generous as I see it, unique for who he was. He was the avant-garde guy. He was different than everybody else. So if you ever played on the court with a player like him, when you defend them, you are surprised by the quickness of them getting off the floor. That's the reason why his jumper was so hard to stop, because he got off the floor before you mentally thought it. And so that's what makes him interesting. Obviously he transcends the game, he transcends sports, he transcends culture, he transcends the hood and whatever else. But that's who Allen Iverson is. So, but I had to learn that by covering him, seeing him, talking to his mom, seeing him come back. All of those things count. That's the reason why I want to be there, so I can talk to them myself.
Yeah.
Got you.
No.
Go ahead, and Nelly J on the way out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that, it's interesting because these players, and it's interesting how you're right. I think a lot of times as fans, we expect players to become or do things because we think it's right or we think it's what we would do. But just because we would do it doesn't mean they would do it. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think a lot of times we put our expectations that these players are like us. We can't imagine being an Allen Iverson, having a global name, kind of creating a culture behind basketball with the cornrows and his swag. What he did kind of changed the game and how we look at players. So you're right. I think sometimes as fans, we project what we want players to do. And we're like, oh, Allen Iverson do that. But hey, maybe you're right. That's who he is. So we got to respect it. Because some players, like you said, would ride the bench to a ring and score 2 points. Is that respect? I don't know. Right. So Fahim, on the way out, your thoughts?
Oh, no, I think we pretty much covered it. AI legend, regardless.
Legend.
It's just,
it's funny what he said.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because especially when we're dealing back to the practice, we talk about practice and, legendary things that have to do with leadership. So to hear this just felt like a very funny topic to get into. So, But let's put this episode in the books.
That was episode 69. Nice. 69. So thank you so much, Michael, for being on the podcast. You know, on the way out, we love to give our guests a chance to do a shout out. So the floor is yours.
Shout out to my baby girl, Zola Soul. She's my third grandbaby.
Nice.
You know, I can't wait to see her. I haven't seen her yet. You know, she's almost 3 months old. You know, it's my baby girl had a baby girl. You know, so you know, if you ever see like the third and my middle son, his girl is pregnant, so he'll have 3. You know, I'll have 4 grandbabies in spans of 4 years. You know,
nice.
It's great. You know, so once you see the 3rd generation of yourself, your life view changes. Everything.
It's so true.
Everything slows down, but there's something that you don't take, and that's bull crap. You identify immediately and walk the other way. You know what I'm saying? But I can't wait to put those 4 little grandbabies on my lap. So I love them. Lala, Noel, Novelle, Amor, Zola Soul, and the next one, coincidentally, would be named Kobe.
Oh, I love that.
Nice. Very nice.
And my son wanted a boy. He can't have boys. It's his 3rd one. You know what I mean?
Well, hashtag girl dad. He is Kobe. Because
like
Kobe had how many girls, right?
Yeah.
So
right, and he's going to name the girl
5.
Kobe.
Yeah.
Kobe. So that's going to be great. But shout out to my kids, Michael, Taylor, and Gas, and all my grandbabies.
Great.
Awesome.
My sister too.
Oh, awesome. Well, I want to shout you out, Michael. Thank you for being on here. I follow you on social media. Intelligent, insightful. I learn a lot from you. So y'all, we're going to have all the social media links, his SportsKeeda, everything that he does. We'll have it set so you guys can follow him and stay familiar with what's happening with these players on and off the court. Fahim.
Yeah, my shout on the way out, Michael. I do thank you very much for coming out tonight. You know, there's a lot of history and a lot of gems that you dropped today. Something that we can definitely look out for and look back to. And I thank you very much just for, you know, being you. You did a great job tonight. So let's put this episode in the books.
So that was episode 69. If you had a good time, if you learned a lot, please subscribe, like, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Fahim.
Hey, you know we're at on all platforms. You're looking for us. You know where to find us if you need us. That's Good Rookies Podcast, episode 69. And we out.
Peace.